The ongoing struggle between development and green space continues on the West Island. A proposal to develop part of L'Anse-à-Lorme Park in Pierrefonds West has not only resulted in opposing opinions, it's also resulted in opposing numbers to support the opposing opinions. A recent survey conducted for Cap Nature property developers found that only 38% of residents were aware of the project, but 55% of people who were aware were in favor of the development. Those findings contrast a survey done by the province's Office of Public Consultation, which determined 87% of Montrealers opposed the project, though just 29% of those surveyed actually lived in Pierrefonds-Roxborough. Mayor Plante's Projet Montréal has expressed support for preservation of the popular green space, but as CityLife reporter Giordano Cescuti discovered, that's a guarantee of nothing.
Nicolas Châtel-Launay often comes to the L'Anse-à-Lorme Nature Park to unwind.
What I do most here is just bird watching, learning to identify my mushrooms, walking, having fun, de-stressing. Life is stressful. A walk in the woods is good for your mental health. But
the proposed Cap Nature development project would eliminate more than half of L'Anse-à-Lorme's meadows, woods, and wetlands. The plan would include 5,500 housing units, along with schools, cycling paths, and green spaces. 180 hectares of the green space will be left untouched.
Really, the ones we have left should be kept, and instead we should probably work on increasing the density of people living in areas that are already constructed.
But according to a poll commissioned by the developers, many in the area are in fact hoping the project moves forward.
What they like in the project too is there's an economic development component. I think people in the borough, that's what they want.
A large portion of the area's natural green space will be preserved in the plans submitted by GREDEV and 4 other owner-developers. But environmental groups say that developing even a portion of the natural space would threaten the area's biodiversity.
The animals use the entire space. So when you take out a huge portion of it, they don't adjust. They go somewhere else, or they walk onto the road. They won't survive.
Montreal is well behind most Canadian cities when it comes to protected green spaces. In 2015, the city set a target of preserving 10% of the island as green space, but only 6% is protected right now. Nonprofit group Let's Save L'Anse-à-Lorme was formed in 2015 to combat the proposed development and protect the natural area. Co-founder Sue Stacco says the city simply can't afford to give up its last major undeveloped space.
It's so beautiful. There's no place like this left in Montreal. It's wild still. It's just a place where you can go and have that quiet and that moment, and then you get to see, sometimes you're lucky and you see an owl, or you see a deer, or you just have some quiet, and it's just so needed in this day and age.
The region had previously been zoned as agricultural, but in 2009, the borough of Pierrefonds made a number of zoning changes, which included opening up the area for residential development. Former Pierrefonds City Councillor Justine McIntyre says the intentions of the current administration have been clear from the beginning.
It's a local team of people that have historically been pushing this project. They've been absolutely behind it. They're the ones who approved the zoning changes, and they've always defended the project.
But some argue that the borough's pro-development stance stems from a need to fund borough projects. Economic development strategist Miguel Escobar says the borough has no choice but to rely on direct property taxation.
They need to find new sources of revenue because expenses are going up, and they need to distribute the taxes to the citizens. So if they don't have development or densification, it's going to be hard for the city of Pierrefonds or the arrondissement to find new sources of revenue.
Montreal's new administration has vowed to create the city's first urban national park in these woods, but many advocating for the preservation of this natural space fear that this was simply a campaign promise.
We've seen that Projet Montréal was able to say a lot of things in order to arrive in power at City Hall, and they've already disappointed us on a number of promises.
While McIntyre doesn't think that Projet Montréal will deliver, others are more optimistic.
It's great to have support from downtown. We need that, but we have to keep going, and we have to keep creating a momentum that makes everyone want this park, even the developers.
The city recently announced its new 3-year investment plan, yet no money was earmarked for a national park in the region. In fact, the Cap Nature development project remained in the investment plan.
That sends off a lot of alarm bells. If Projet Montréal was really serious about turning it into a park, we should have seen some money going towards that.
Luc Ferranez is the executive committee member responsible for large parks at Projet Montréal. He says there is no way a 5,500-unit housing development will be built in Pierrefonds West under a Plante administration, and their next investment plan will reflect that. He adds that the city is committed to creating a national park in Pierrefonds and that preliminary discussions with its partners have already begun. Residents and environmental groups like Let's Save L'Anse Delorme are hoping the city will make good on that commitment to make a national park in the area. But for now, they'll continue to enjoy their beloved green space.
Citizens can easily come and enjoy nature, have a walk, see mushrooms, look at birds. Something that's harder to do in the Montreal area now, as larger and interconnected woodlands have become extremely rare.
It's who we are, it's part of who we are. And how do I explain to that many people who have fought for this land that they've lost it? I don't know. It would be devastating to many, many people.
Giordano Ciscuti, CityLife, Pierrefonds, Roxborough.
Cap Nature proposes building 5,500 housing units, 3 schools, 8 daycares, bike paths, and a whole lot more than that. Here to discuss the development and green space tug-of-war is Justine McIntyre. She is a former city councillor for Pierrefonds, Roxborough. Sabine Carcenti is a promoter and real estate broker. Ethan Cox is an editor at Ricochet Media. Thank you all for being here. And Ethan, we'll start with you. Initial thoughts on the Cap Nature development project?
I think this is a watershed moment for the new administration. We've seen some issues where Projet Montréal has not maintained their